Greetings to all. We are going to explore on the topic the theories of evolution. I would like to begin by quoting J.R.J.MARLIN, who said, "Nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution," which means evolution is the core theme of biology. He is the one who provided laboratory evidence for evolution. Nowadays, the term evolution penetrated even into our common language. The basic idea of evolution is that population and species of organism changes over time. The question of origin of life and everything on this earth has always fascinated the human mind. From the earliest times, the origin of life is always connected to supernatural powers or gods. However, naturalistic model of origin based on logic and philosophy can be traced back to 5th century BC. Plato and Aristotle were the philosophers at that time. Their idealistic view of animals striving for perfection laid the foundation for the naturalistic view of origin of life. Plato stated that variations in plant and animal population as being imperfect representation of ideal forms. Only the perfect forms of organisms were real, and this theory is called idealism or essentialism. According to him, the imperfect forms designed to achieve idealistic forms imposed by an external creator or God. Aristotle, the father of biology and the most influential of the Greek philosophers in Europe, and he was a student of Plato also, expanded Plato's ideas to include the development of organisms and the origin of group of organisms. He believed all living forms could be arranged on a scale of increasing complexity called scala natura, with no vacancies and no means to improve on this ladder of life. That means the species are fixed and they are permanent and they do not evolve. And this is called stability of species by Aristotle. The first chapters of the biblical book of Genesis describe God's creation of the world, the plants, the animals, and the human being. This is recorded in the Judeo-Christian culture. According to this, the adaptations in organisms were planned by the Creator or God. Each and every species designed for a particular purpose, and nowadays it is known as intelligent design theory. During 17th century, European colonialism led to the discovery of several species across the globe, across the continents, and several new species is discovered, and it is noted that they are very large. And that led to the thought maybe the species can change after all. Although this was discussed in numerous scientific arenas and numerous science circles, it was contrary to the religious teaching and belief of that period, and it got easily dismissed by other scientists. During 17th century, the naturalists of 17th century were preoccupied with finding several species and naming them. But still, they have accepted the theory that all the animals were created in a limited time scale. And they also believed and assumed the fixity of species, and the species are stable and they don't evolve. They used new inventions like microscopes and telescopes to explore the embryos and stars, and they also discovered fossil bed, and they believed that fossils are the remains of previously existed animals, of unknown animals. In 1813, a French anatomist, Georges Cuvier, proposed a theory called catastrophism in his book named Essays on the Theory of Earth. Cuvier was actually the first scientist to document the extinction of ancient animals. He was an internationally recognized expert on dinosaurs also. He believed that the species were fixed and did not change like others. Cuvier advocated the theory of catastrophism, where he tried to explain fossil formation of unknown extinct animals. This theory was based on the assertion that there have been violent and sudden natural catastrophes such as great floods and other very sudden physical changes to the earth. Organisms living in those areas where these sudden violent changes had occurred were often killed off and replaced by new life forms moving in from other geographic areas. That is how we explain the fossil formation, and the fossil record of this type of region would show abrupt changes in the species according to Cuvier. James Hutton tried to explain the fossil formation in a different way, who proposed that the natural forces on Earth changing the shape of the Earth's surface. Such natural forces had been operating throughout the time in much the same way. So, James Hutton described gradual geological processes operating continuously over a long period of time. In 1795, he suggested gradualism, and Hutton said profound change on Earth is the cumulative product of a slow but continuous process. He looked at a present day process like erosion by water and believed that these processes operating over millions of years could have created the geological features which we see today. Charles Lyell, an English lawyer and geologist, had carefully examined European geological deposits and concluded that catastrophism theory was wrong. But Lyell believed in Hutton's gradualism theory. Although catastrophic events may rarely occur throughout the time, the planet has continually undergone processes that change and shape the land of the Earth, including erosion, earthquakes, glacial movements, volcanoes, and even the decomposition of dead plants and animals. The theory that resulted from Lyell's observation was called uniformitarianism. Uniformitarianism, an embellishment on Hutton's gradualism, geological processes are so uniform that their rates and effects must balance out throughout time. And Lyell suggested the Earth was hundreds of millions of years old in his book Principles of Geology. Meanwhile, French biologist Jean-Baptiste Lamarck proposed that an organism could pass on its traits to its offspring. Lamarck recognized that species adapted to their environment. He explained this by saying that the innate force of an organism driving the animal and cause its organs of an animal to change based on the use or disuse of those organs. For example, just as exercise affects muscles. He argued that these changes would be inherited by the next generation and produce slow adaptation to the environment. It was this mechanism of adaptation through the inheritance of acquired characteristics, and this theory is known as Lamarckism. In his Lamarckism, Lamarck quoted environmental pressures require animals to strive unconsciously toward higher branching pathways of perfection, and he believed that evolution responded to organisms' felt need, and it is quoted in his theory called use and disuse. For example, Lamarck thought that giraffes originally had an egg, but that as trees around them grew taller, they stretched their necks to reach the tasty leaves, and their offspring gradually evolved longer and longer necks. Lamarck also believed that life was somehow driven to evolve through generation from simple to more complex form. Lamarckianism was based on the belief that evolution was mostly due to the inheritance of acquired characteristics as the organism adapted to their environment. The basic idea of evolution is that population and species of organisms changes over time. Today, when we think of evolution, we link this idea with one specific person, the British naturalist Charles Darwin. In the 1850s, Darwin wrote an influential and controversial book called On the Origin of Species. Darwin's seminal book set forth his ideas about evolution and natural selection. Darwin originally intended to study medicine at Edinburgh, and later he went to Cambridge to study theology. Both he left incomplete, but left to go as a naturalist on the voyage in the ship named Beagle in 1831 to South America. In 1831, he left on a 5-year voyage on a boat, Beagle, to survey the coast of South America. He stopped up at the Galapagos Island for 5 weeks, where the diversity of the plants and animals amazed him. In 1836, he returned to England, but only in 1859 he published a book on the origin of species, why there is a long gap, and what ideas influenced Darwin. This slide shows the voyage of Beagle that covered 4 continents, including the famous Galapagos Island, and included stops in South America, Australia, and the southern tip of Africa. Darwin carried out survey expedition during his voyage. At each of his expedition stops, Darwin had the opportunity to study and catalog the local plants and animals with the help of few things he took with him, like camera, lucida, and all. The voyage stopped at a Pacific island near mainland Ecuador, the Galapagos Islands, which was a group of volcanic islands. Over the course of his travels, Darwin began to see intriguing patterns in the distribution and features of organisms in the Galapagos Islands. Some of the most important patterns Darwin noticed in distribution of organisms in Galapagos Islands are variation within species on the different island. But he didn't fully understand what he saw till he returned to England. Here Darwin observed that animals found on the Galapagos Islands were similar to species on the nearby mainland of Ecuador, but different from those found elsewhere in the world. He observed and recorded long-necked turtles and trees like cactuses that are found elsewhere in the world. Darwin observed a group of birds named finches in Galapagos. This picture is the sketch of Darwin himself. Each Galapagos island has finches which are unique in color and pattern, but they are non-identical with finches of other islands of Galapagos. Moreover, he noted that each finch species was well suited for its environment and role. For instance, species that ate large seeds tended to have large tough beaks, while those that ate insects had thin sharp beaks. According to Darwin's idea, Galapagos Islands had long ago been populated by birds from the neighboring mainland. On each island, the finches might have gradually adapted to local conditions. This process could have led to the formation of one or more distinct species on each island, such as grains-eating large ground finch, cactus-eating small ground finch, insect-eating warbler finch, and leaf-eating vegetarian tree finch. And later, several species of finches found after Darwin completed his voyage and returned to England, but he didn't publish his findings of the voyage till 1859. Meanwhile, Alfred Wallace in 1858 developed a theory of evolution identical to the one Darwin was working on. He sent his theories to Lyell. Lyell later sent the articles to Darwin to study Wallace's theory of evolution. Meanwhile, Darwin met English economist Thomas Malthus. The economist Malthus explained population growth to Darwin. In his published book called Essay on Principles of Population, he quoted 2 theories, survival of the fittest and struggle for existence. In this book, he explains population breeds rapidly, and the population tendency to multiply faster than its food supply. They breed faster and it multiply faster than its food need. But animal population also checked by several limiting factors. Because of the limiting factors and large animal population, they tend to struggle for existence. This struggle makes only the best suitable animal to survive, and this is quoted in his theory called survival of the fittest. But still, the organism need to breed to maintain their species. Darwin took his ideas and along with Wallace, both of them presented their ideas to the London Philosophical Society in 1858. And 32 years after his voyage, Darwin published his book on Origin of Species in 1859. Origin of Species talks about natural selection. Darwin proposes a mechanism of evolution in his theory, natural selection. This mechanism explained how population could evolve in such a way that they become better suited to their environment over time. This was quoted by Darwin as descent with modification. Darwin's concept of natural selection was based on several key observations such as traits are often heritable. In living organisms, many characteristics are inherited or passed from parent to offspring. And organisms are capable of producing more offspring than their environment can support. More offspring are produced than can survive. Thus, there is competition for limited sources in each generation. In a population, some individuals will have inherited traits that help them survive and reproduce. And these individuals with the helpful traits will leave more offspring in the next generation than their peers, since the trait make them more effective at surviving and reproducing. According to the theory, individuals with the traits that enable them to adapt to their environment will help them survive and have more offspring which will inherit those traits. Individuals with less adaptive traits will less frequently survive to pass them on. Over time, the traits that enable species to survive and reproduce will become more frequent in the population, and the population will change or evolve. When compared to Lamarck, the Darwinian view of giraffe evolution would be that giraffes had natural variation in their neck lengths, and that those with longer necks were better able to survive and reproduce in environments full of tall trees, so that subsequent generations had more and more long-necked giraffes. The theory of evolution is one of the best substantiated theories in the history of science. It is supported by evidence from wide variety of scientific disciplines, including genetics, which shows that different species have similarities in their DNA. There is also evidence supporting the theory of evolution in paleontology and geology. In 1871, Darwin published The Descent of Man and Sexual Selection Theory, which contained his view on human evolution. With this, I conclude this presentation. Thank you. Have a nice day.